Welcome back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Victor Ruthenbeck spreads good times through the wine and spirits industry. He's been writing since he was a child. In fact, it was a childhood experience that led him to write The Desk, described as a thrilling and unforgettable roller coaster ride of an adventure involving a young man and a young woman from another time. Now, Victor, I got to tell you, this is some desk you got there.
When I was in sixth grade, one of my very best friends and we came up with an idea, and we decided we were going to collaborate and write a novel together. So we spent countless hours up in my room, sitting at my childhood desk on a little electric typewriter, and through weekends and after school, we just pounded out as much as we could on this novel idea that we had. And we took about 3/4 of a year, and we got about maybe 230 pages in, and then other distractions started to happen, girls and things like that. So we kind of shelved the project, and we thought we'd come back to it, but sadly we never did. And one of the things that I've kept, very few things that I've kept from my childhood, is that childhood desk. And I've carried it with me. I've lived on the East Coast, up and down the West Coast, and the Midwest, and I've carried it with me all those years and all those destinations. And a couple of years ago, I got word that my friend had suddenly died tragically, and it hit me kind of hard. And one day I found myself just staring at my childhood desk in my office, and thinking about him, thinking about all the times we had on that, the dreams we had, everything. And as I was reflecting on all those memories, suddenly, out of nowhere, the idea for my novel, The Desk, just dropped into my head. So I sat down, and by the day's end, I wrote the first 6 chapters.
Wow, that sounds almost like, serendipitous, like it was meant to be.
Yeah, it was. Was it a metaphysical connection, from my friend that passed away? I don't know, but it was, in a way, it was very magical. It just felt right. Everything just flowed naturally throughout the course of writing the entire novel. There were never any hiccups or anything. It just materialized.
Tell me the story.
Well, it's a heart-pounding, time-twisting thriller, kind of full of mystery and danger, unique friendships, and of course the haunting power of a forgotten past. It's a story that follows a 12-year-old boy named Timothy Deckel, who receives an antique mail desk for his birthday. And as you can imagine, he's not too thrilled about the present that he's gotten until he discovers this eerie secret that it has. It allows him to exchange letters to a young girl who lives 80 years in the past, and she's in a lot of danger. Kind of what they soon discover is that this danger connects them both, bridges time and changes the boundaries between past and present, with the twist of the extraordinary, of course. So, what I like to always say is some mysteries don't stay buried, and some deaths don't stay silent.
How does he find this new pen pal, Mabel? How does he find her?
A mysterious letter shows up in his desk. Yeah, I'm in one of the mail slots. So he comes home from school. He's doing this, getting ready for his homework and everything. He looks over at his desk, and there's a letter sitting there, and it's unaddressed, has an old timestamp on it, looks very, very old. And of course, he immediately thinks someone's playing a trick on him. Is his mom playing a trick on him? Is his older sister, who's constantly messing with him, playing a trick on him? So he's not sure what to do at first, and then eventually he decides, okay, I'm going to open this, and he reads it, and it's from a young 15-year-old girl named Mabel, who lives in the past, and she's writing to her beloved Thomas, who's just moved away from her hometown and boarded the transcontinental train and was headed to California with his family. They'd fallen in love the year before, and so she didn't have an address to send it to, and she was just writing him and stuck it in her mail slot for it to go. And it passed through time and passed on to Timothy. So again, he wasn't sure about it. Maybe someone's still messing with him, so he writes a return letter, and that begins the friendship. And the letter disappears, heads to her, And then the correspondence begins, and they realize this is a real thing.
When he writes the letter, he just put it in his desk.
Put it in the mail slot, to the furthest mail slot to the left. Yeah, and you have to have a stamp on it too. So that's one thing that's kind of fun, as you explore kind of the history of stamps a little, because her stamps, no address, nothing but a stamp. So his stamps are from 1976, which is the time period in which he lives. So it's a bicentennial year. So you have a lot of bicentennial stamps, a lot of different things like that that just blow her mind, because the color of the stamps, the imagery of the stamps is just, so it's kind of fun going down that historical path.
And she's in danger.
She's in danger. Not at first, but slowly she becomes in danger. And then you quickly realize that the things that are happening in her past might not have been completed entirely, because things start to happen in Timothy's future right then and there. And he lists his best friend, Will, and he are trying to help Mabel, but then they become suddenly realizing something's happening right now with them as well, and it's connected.
This sounds like so much fun.
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good read for sure. It's full of a lot of twists and turns, and it's got a lot of unexpected things that happen, and the mystery just continues to unfold, and it's fun as the dots slowly get connected.
Do people know you've written this?
Yes, quite a few people know that I've written it locally. Talking to a lot of the local bookstores, a lot of different places like that, to possibly get together and put together some, readings and signings and things of that nature. So kind of working towards that direction and dealing a little with the local media as well.
How are you dealing with the local media?
Well, there's a lot of independent media that's here. So I have a few friends that are involved in it, so they're going to throw me some solids.
Okay, there you go. Now you're thinking. Thinking. So podcasts, that kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly.
What's interesting too is when authors talk about your process and how the story came to you, and, how you developed your dialogue, and how did this mystery unfold in your mind?
Well, like I said earlier, it just unfolded naturally. When the idea popped into my head, it shocked me. It was surprising because I didn't expect it. And I really didn't have an ending or a middle. I had a beginning. And as I wrote it and started creating the characters, and as the characters became alive in my mind, as they do, when you write, the character takes on their own life, and they have their own will. And, to say that, their will is, they sometimes do things on their own. You might have an idea like, okay, we're going to go this direction, but the character goes, oh, no, we're going to go this direction. And you're like, wow, that's brilliant. Yeah. Okay. I'm running with this one, so I've written a few other novels unpublished, and I always had a beginning, middle, end, always had this rough draft and everything. And it was very formulaic, but this one was very different from that. It was just very natural.
Does it end here?
It is wrapped up as a single novel, but it also lends itself to a sequel. So it's very easily could be a sequel to it. And I've written the first few chapters of it just to have it in case there's a demand for it.
In case there's a demand for it.
Yeah, then the feedback's been very positive. People have enjoyed the character so much that they've really come out and said, hey, are you going to do a sequel? Are you going to do a sequel? Come on, I want more. I want more. So that's been very encouraging for me to hear that kind of feedback.
I mean, while you're talking to me, I'm thinking 1976, Mabel's 80 years back in time. It is very possible that she is alive somewhere in 1976. Like that's what's going through my mind as you're talking, like, wow, maybe he finds her. And it all started with like a Stand By Me situation, bunch of boys hanging out.
Yeah. It's like a Stand By Me / Goonies / Indian in the Cupboard type thing. It's got a little of all that in there for sure.
Okay. What would you say to authors? They listen to podcasts like this because they're trying to find a way to get off the dime. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. When people find out that I've written a novel, I hear that a lot where, I want to write a novel. I have this idea. I've always wanted to do it. And I'm like, why haven't you started? And they're like, well, I wrote like the first 2 chapters, and then I went back and I didn't think it was very good, and I was editing it. So my advice, I always say, is Don't edit. Don't do anything. Write the story. Editing comes later. Rewrites come later. Just gut it out. Get it done. Start. And don't worry about anything other than telling your story. Tell your story. And then when you're done telling your story, then go back and fix it, and change it if you need to, polish it up. But yeah, number one thing is just sit down and write.
All right. Victor Ruthenbeck, author of The Desk. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It was very much a privilege, and I enjoyed every minute of this.
Working in the pharma industry by day, putting his 2-year-old to bed at night, Benjamin White somehow finds time to write for the fun of it. Now he's published his first book, Santa's Truck, and it's just in time for the holidays. So, really, writing's always been part of your life.
I started when I was in college. When I was younger, I would write short stories about my family and send them out in these email sagas to them, which always generated a few laughs.
Nice. So what made you decide to not only write a book, but publish it?
I think that inspiration really started in college when, I was writing these 20-page essays, and I'm like, why can't I just spend a little extra time per day, start putting my imagination into thoughts on a page and start formulating a book? So I wrote my first chapter book my sophomore year of college. And that was to kind of bring a metamorphosis of climate change into a children's fantasy novel. And I've also just always loved poetry and just using words to try to understand life a little bit better. So it was not until my junior year of college where I wrote a children's book called Benny and Laddie's Big Adventure, where a child's communication specialist came up to me and said, you should start trying to publish these because that is a fantastic book. So I still have that one on the back burner. But it was around Christmas time when my wife was pregnant with my son when I wrote this book. And I just began to think about, what might be a conversation that my son has with his grandfather. Because I know with my grandfather would have had a conversation with me regarding how awesome Fords are. And I knew that would not be the same for my son's grandfather, who is going to tell him how awesome Chevy trucks are. So I began to picture that and just the conversations that might appear there. And so it was late at night and I just started thinking about the words and I started putting them to paper. And the next thing I knew, I was trying to get it published so I could give it to my son's grandfather as a Christmas gift.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, how does Santa come into the Ford Chevy debate?
Yeah, and because it was around Christmas, Santa was on my mind. And I wanted to kind of bring a little bit of a comical spin to things. And so I wondered, what would happen if Santa didn't have his reindeer? And that's where the utilization of a truck just must come into play. And so that's kind of where my brain began to go. And I began to think on how my father-in-law would take the perspective of explaining that to my son if my son became worried at all.
So tell me how you lay out the book.
Yeah, so the whole thing starts with a child pretty much not being able to go to sleep because there's a winter storm on Christmas Eve. So, what the heck is Santa going to be able to do to get through this storm? And he goes up to his grandfather, who's sitting in the den by the Christmas tree. And the grandfather's pretty much just like, child, it's time that you learn. And then the grandfather starts to go into a story on how Santa loves trucks. And he had an important decision to choose between two different trucks. And throughout the story, it starts to draw comparisons between, and I should say these are opinion comparisons based off of my grandfather's opinions here in regards to how one truck performs versus another. And it kind of takes a comical spin with seeing the reindeer and how they react when one of the trucks breaks down and when another truck does well. I don't do any reveal until the very end when the grandfather's pretty much just like, and that's why you drive a Chevy. And then it shows the grandfather putting on his Santa's hat and looking out at his truck, which is kind of an allude to, at the end of the day, Santa is our grandparents, is our parents. And so that's more of an allude to the parents, to be like recognition to those who really play Santa for our kids.
Oh, so I believe what I'm looking at is the cover of your book, and this is no ordinary Ford or Chevy. It's a flying truck.
Yeah, that was a comical spin there. I did ask if they could get some reindeer just to pull the truck through the sky there. But through the book, yes, Santa is actually driving the truck. And the reindeer going to take a back seat for once and pretty much act like dogs in a truck with their head out the window.
Oh, this is adorable. Do you have kids you can read this to? Have you tried this out on anybody?
I have, yes. I'm fortunate with a fairly large family, and I'm fortunate to have married into a fairly large family. So there are accumulation of at least 10 different kids now who have heard this story. And I had written a little aside to my own son and put it into his bookcase, not really thinking about it, because by the time I got these books in print, it was closer to the summer. And so I just kind of snuck it in there. And then it was one day, my wife came up to me and she's like, just so you know, he just keeps asking to read this one book. He just wants Santa's truck. And I'm like, well, I'll take it. I wasn't even looking for that, but I'll take it. And so I've heard more and more stories along those lines. And I really think, looking at the book and just knowing the climate of the U.S. and the competition between Ford and Chevy, I think it would be a good laugh for some adults as well.
Well, I mean, your timing could not be better.
Yeah, so I sent a few copies out to the heads of Chevy, and then I'm going to be sending a few copies also out to some Chevy influencers, just to see if they can add an allude to the book in some of their YouTube videos. And I'm also going to, my dad's a pastor, and so I am lucky to have some connections there where he was able to publicize it out to 600 computers. So we're in the beginning process of that. We're starting to get the Facebook page together and everything like that to really start the promotion piece.
That's great. It's perfect timing. I mean, we're far enough away from Christmas to give you a run up.
Yeah. There's a few libraries by us, and my wife is actively involved there. So those are additional things that we're also looking at. And we've also gone to some Chevy dealers to see if they could just keep the book out come the holiday season. So
sounds like this was meant to be, like everything's kind of fallen into place for you.
Yeah, I mean, as long as we don't tell any Ford lovers where I live, we should be all set.
So now what? Are you going to keep writing? Did you enjoy this process of writing and publishing?
Yeah, so, I write for the fun of it often, and I would say, and I'm sure there's quite a few people who can empathize with this, the most difficult part of writing I have found is the actual publication of the book. Writing is the fun part, and then trying to describe your book in a single page and then getting it advertised and getting it out there, I think is one of the more challenging parts, because the fun part is letting your imagination go loose, and then all the technical pieces come in. So the process, I would say, was rewarding overall to finally see the book published. I think there's a lot of work to be done in regard to getting it out there and getting more books out there. For example, Benny and Laddie's Truck, that's the next one. That's the next runner-up that we're looking to get published. So yeah, I'm excited to see where things can go from here.
That's great. And the process was something that you would embrace again.
Absolutely. Again, I don't think anything worth enjoying typically comes easy. A lot of things require work, and this is no exception in regard to getting something that you love out there in a way that other people can enjoy it as well.
Great. Benjamin White, author of Santa's Truck. Thank you.
Thank you.
Maryann Gardner's always been a writer, from short stories to poetry, but she kept them in a notebook, never shared them. Then she had kids, and she was inspired to write a children's book. It's called Tiny Surprises.
Well, the inspiration for my book came from me making up stories when my children were small. I mean, even though I've never been formally diagnosed, I think I have some type of reading disability. So sometimes reading can be difficult for me. And on those times, I would just make up stories for the kids before they went to bed and stuff like that. So I would just, again, come up with different ideas. And when, being the person who's raised Catholic faith, God, stuff like that, I was always told, God gives you all these little gifts and stuff and gives you all these little gifts. And, we're all born with things, what I mean, that get special to us. So that's how the story of Tiny Surprises came from. That when he creates a baby, he hides all these little gifts or tiny surprises inside them. And as the baby grows, they have to find and discover them.
Who are the kids in your book?
My children, Ashley and Christopher.
Where do we find them when the book opens?
We open up the book and I'm talking to my daughter, and she asks me to read her story and basically to tell her story. So I go to grab a book, and she says, "No, tell me a story from when you were little." And then I begin telling her the story of Tiny Surprises, and then she's excited about the story, and then she tells her brother. So they're both excited about what they're going to discover. They ask their mom what are all the things they can find out about themselves, and and she goes on telling them all the things that they could possibly find about themselves. One of them would be, God gave you the gift of creativity. Even though a lot of people have that gift, for each person it's individualized. No two people see alike, or therefore no two people are creative alike. For example, my daughter asked me in the book, "Mom, can you tell me one surprise that tiny surprise about me, basically, that for sure that I have?" And I said to her, "You didn't know that you would be good at drawing, and then you gave it a chance, and then you drew that beautiful picture of your dog Chester in the yard playing. You didn't know you would be good at baking, but then you tried baking with your nanny, and then and you found out you were really good at baking." So I'm basically telling them all the things. You might discover that you're a really good friend. You might discover you're a good singer. You might discover. So I go through all these things that they might discover about themselves as a possibility by getting out there and trying. And the book, with my surprise, that watching them discover all the little things about them is something that I can't wait to do as the mother. And that, and for me, that's a gift.
Oh.
Yes.
But how old are your kids now?
They're 32 and 34.
What do they think of the book?
They love it. They do remember me telling them that story when they were little.
That you can be anything you want to be?
Yeah, it's just a short, inspirational children's book. It's kind of like a love story to my children. There's a lot of detail in it about my children. Like I said, a lot of detail about my faith. Like everything into the book is detailed. The cover page, if you notice, the little stars look like crosses, and it confirms my faith. The cover of the page. As you open up the book, my children on their T-shirts, my daughter always loved music and singing. There's musical instruments on it, the notes and stuff on her shirt. My son always loved fishing. That was one of his favorite things in the whole wide world. Still is. For him, there's a fishing rod on his T-shirt. It's a love story to God. It's a love story to my children. It's a love story to all these different things. It's all part of that.
This would be a great book to read in a Sunday school class.
It would. I mean, anybody can read it and get something out of it, no matter how old you are. But for like young ones, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, I feel like it's just the perfect length of the book. It's a children's book and it has a message. Um, Everything has detail. Like I submitted pictures of my children and I when we were younger together, and that those illustrations are meant to look like us.
Are you happy with the way that turned out?
I am very happy with the way that turned out.
Great.
You know, it's honored my children. It's honored my faith. It's there's a lot of details in that book that are personal that maybe the average person won't get, but I get. My family gets. You know, even down to my like dedication, I included everybody in my family.
Nice. How are you telling people about it?
How am I telling people about it? Well, right now I'm working with my publishing company who has a promoting package. I've joined a lot of Facebook groups. I post on there. I post on TikTok. I tell a lot of my friends and family through all that.
Are you going to keep writing?
I am. I do have some other ideas.
Okay.
I like the publishing company that I work with. You know, they're very good. They're very helpful. They help me do everything. Yeah, so
You must have been so happy when you got that in the mail.
I was very happy. And again, I worked very hard on putting it together. I worked very hard with my publishing company and putting it together. And I really put a lot of like heart into it.
I can hear that. All right. Maryann Gardner, author of Tiny Surprises. Thanks so much.
Thank you. You have a great day.
S.N. Ballard took a page from her life and turned it into an educational book for children. It is entitled The Dreamers Dream of Being Doctors. Now, you were really young when you first started writing.
I've written my entire life. I would write little stories and then put them to the side. The earliest I wrote a story, my mom still has it, was in the 3rd grade. I wrote a little book, a little horror book that had 3 separate little stories in it because I used to love horror stories. But as an adult, I really kind of took it seriously about a year ago. Last year in January, I wrote down in my journal that before the year was over, that my goal was to have published a book, one of the books that I written. So in June of last year, I completed the book and I reached out to publishing agent and I took it from there. I just basically set a goal and was determined to make it happen.
What inspired the dreamers' dream of being doctors?
So I got sick when I was 17 or 18. I got sick with Crohn's disease, which I didn't know what it was at the time. But when I got sick, I was going back and forth to the emergency room or to my regular doctor. And this was like for 2 years. Not one time did anyone ever say, hey, you need a GI doctor or a specialist. I always assumed a doctor is a doctor. Any doctor I see, you should be able to treat me. So when I realized that there were specialists, I started asking other people, you know what specialists are? And I started noticing that other people had the same thought process of a doctor's a doctor unless they've seen a specialist. But when I got sick and I would be sick, my children would pretend to be my little doctors with their little kids and they would come in there and they would pretend. So I would say, you're going to be my GI doctor. Now, fast forward to one of my oldest son, 5 years ago, his kidney shut down. And while we were waiting on a kidney transplant, his heart began to fill with fluid. So in March of 2020, my son received a kidney and heart transplant. So my kids again started learning about more doctors, the nephrologist, the cardiologist, the neurologist. And I just really got into, I really want children to have a better idea, people in general, because whether you're going to grow to be a doctor or you're going to see a doctor, at some point you're going to interact with one. And I want people to have a better understanding of that there are different types of doctors, medical professionals, and what part of the body they treat. I also want kids when they're pretending to be doctors. Like now when my daughter plays pretend, she's always a pediatrician because she loves babies. So she specifically is a pediatrician when she plays.
Well, these dreamers, they're twins. Any
Yes.
particular reason why they're twins?
My 2 youngest children.
Oh, okay. How many kids do you have?
I have 4 in total. My oldest is about to be 21 next week, but then I have a 13-year-old, a 8-year-old, and a 7-year-old.
So tell me what you came up with.
So it basically it's actually part of a series. The second book is being worked on now. The series is about, and it started with the doctors, dreamers dream of being doctors, because I wanted to give kids a lot of kids play make believe, play pretend, and don't realize that the things they're pretending to do are their dreams, are things they want to do when they grow up. We see kids pretend to be NASCAR ride drivers or football players, play teacher. When I was little, I used to like take a piece of paper, fold it in half, and make little fake computers and play office with my sisters. I would put them in little cubicles and we would play office. I would make fake little cell phones that little flip open. Like, I started noticing that I would say kids begin dreaming at an early age with make believe. Then I started realizing, like, telling my kids, like, you got to learn a little more about your career path in a fun way. Like growing up, when they would teach us about our career path, they sometimes they wouldn't make it fun. They would make it sound like, like work. And then but when you're doing something you enjoy, it's not work. So I started paying attention to children, how they play, how they do make believe, and I realized I had a nephew who liked to pretend to be a plumber. So the second book is called The Dreamer's Dream of Building a House, and it teaches about trade jobs. So I wanted to basically create a series of books that would be timeless, that children could interact with, that they could learn from, but they could also have fun with.
And whatever it is they're pretending to be, they're enjoying it.
Exactly. And another thing is, a lot of them see, like, oh, my dad's an electrician. Oh, I know that. My dad's a plumber. Oh, I have an aunt who's a surgeon. They can identify, when they hear it, they identify it. And one more thing about the book, it doesn't just, it teaches the name of the medical professional, and it also teaches about the part of the body in terms that children can relate to. So, for example, when we say the doctor that treats the heart is called the cardiologist. And that way they can hear the word cardiologist and relate it to, oh, that's the heart doctor.
Right.
So even if they at that age can't say it all the way, we want to get them in the habit of saying these words and relating them to which doctor. And then I'll tell them a little bit about the heart. And then the heart carries blood throughout the body. So it teaches them the name of the doctor, the part of the body they treat, and a little something about that part of the body.
When you open up the book, what are these twins doing?
They start off at school. They're at career day. They go throughout their day and they use their imagination to imagine themselves in these careers and in these various roles. And that's where the part of that part where the dreamers dream. And it starts off with them doing something regular, and they begin imagining and dreaming what it would be like to participate in their job. So in this book, they start off just in class, and the teacher is asking them what they want to be when they grow up. And one of the students says she wants to be a doctor, which would be Lily. And that's the name my daughter chose for her character. But then the teacher, who represents my son, begins their older brother, begins explaining to them that there are different types of doctors, because when he asks her what kind, she doesn't know. So then he goes into explaining the different types of doctors that there are. For example, a pediatrician is a doctor that only takes care of small babies and children. So that's just a small example of how it reads so that children can understand it.
How about the GI doctor?
So when we get to the GI doctor, I go to tummy ache, because kids, they understand tummy ache. So for the tummy ache, I put, Mr. Ray, if I have a tummy ache, what doctor would I go see? And he explains that for a tummy ache, you would go see a gastroenterologist, or what we call a GI doctor. And I've had a couple people say, adults like, that's a big word. How do they say? I said, well, first, it encourages the child to go and interact with the parent, because they have to ask, what is this word?
Yeah.
I said, now they both have to sit and learn how to pronounce this word together. And that was another thing I wanted to bring together. So then, because there are parents who don't know it. So then they may get interested, like, oh, okay, a GI doctor. Okay, so again, that's how I explain it. A tummy ache, you would see the gastroenterologist, or what we call a GI doctor. The GI doctors help treat and prevent sickness that can hurt the stomach badly.
And where do you leave off? So at the end of the book, are you leading into the next book?
At the end of the book, this one actually just ends with career day, where he explained, it ends, there are so many different types of doctors in the world. They are the people that help us to feel better when our bodies feel bad. So many doctors, as you can see, now little dreamers, tell me, what kind of doctor would you like to be? So it kind of leaves off with them. Once the book finish the book, you get to ask them, would you like to be a doctor? What kind? And usually anytime I read the book to kids, that's the first thing. I want to be this kind of doctor. I want to be that. And I love to see that. So that's why I ended it with that question. That question leads them to then start answering and thinking about it.
Yeah. Where do you read to kids?
I go to the schools, so I went around to my local elementary schools and gave them my card, and I just told them I just wanted to come read the books. It wasn't even about selling books. I just want kids to learn this because, like I said, it was big for me. I was going. My mom, nobody in my family knew to say, "Hey, you need to get a special doctor." Nobody ever said, "Hey, baby, if you got stomach issues, you need to see a GI doctor." No one for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I'll never forget his name. His name was Al. That's why when my son got sick, I knew immediately we need a nephrologist. Okay, we need a cardiologist. I had my first heart attack. My first heart attack at 23 because of my Crohn's. I didn't know how bad Crohn's disease was. But I had my
Jeez.
first heart attack when I was 23. So that's when I got my first cardiologist.
So when you go around to these schools,
I'm in the process of going to every elementary school in my district within my county. I just give them my card. Like I want to do Read Across America. I give it to the librarians. I give it to when they did the back to school bashes for opening schools so people can get supplies. I would go and speak to the teachers and just told them, I would love to just come to your classroom one day and read the book to your class. Or I go to even churches. They have youth programs and fall festival and different festivals. So I tell them, I go to read the book there.
and the schools are letting you come in.
Yes, if it's in relation to, like, for example, one of the schools, they've done it now where they have it like houses, like Game of Thrones. They divide the children into houses.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of the schools I went to, their house was something in French. It meant House of Dreams. And my shirt, that's the slogan for my series is Dreamers Dream the Biggest Dreams. So when she saw that, she was like, I definitely want you to come read the book. And she's the one who brought up Reading Across America. And then another teacher said that when they discussed germs and do science, she would like for me to come in and read about that then. So it's just, I come whenever it's appropriate for the teacher, if it's okay with them and if it falls in line with their curriculum.
This is so good for any authors that are listening. The biggest question, the biggest issue for a lot of authors is where to go with their book, what to do with their book once it's published. And for children's books, it's great for parents who have kids that are in school and they can go to the schools. But people are so reluctant, I find, to just do what you're doing. Go to the schools and, if you have a book that's appropriate for children, trying to get in there. I don't know. Any advice for authors who are trying to get their books out there?
I would advise them to take a leap. Children, when it comes to books, if you don't make it look fun or make it fun, it's not fun for them. If you give a child a book, if it's not something they're interested in, they're really just gonna thumb through it and they're done. But if you sit down and read it and show them what's in it, have the exciting voices, get them engaged, get them asking questions. Like I said in the book, when I asked them, have you had a tummy ache or have you ever had a rash? Because when we discussed dermatologists, I said, has anybody got itchy? Anybody had a rash? And I give them time to raise their hands and even maybe tell a couple little stories because, again, you want engagement. Because once you get that engagement, if they're out with their parents and they see that book, Mama, I like this. I know because my daughter has done that before. Mama, we read this in the library. And I had to buy it because she remembered it.
Yeah.
So I would advise them, they're kids. They're as long as you're exciting, they're going to be exciting. You get them engaged and they're going to stay engaged. I remember books from my childhood. Where the Sidewalk Ends, A Snowy Day, a Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. I remember those stories because there were people that read those books to me,
Right,
and I remember engaging with them. So
right.
that would be my advice: engage with the children with your book.
And I guess you would advise them if they have a dream to write a book to go for it.
Exactly. Don't wait. Don't
Uh,
wait. I wish I'd done it years ago.
S.N. Ballard, author of The Dreamer's Dream of Being Doctors. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Like her mother, Minka Fishman Leeser writes poetry. Liquid Synchronicity is her first book with Fulton, and you say a number of things kind of happened all at once that compelled you to write this.
I'll tell you what happened. My little support dog, my little emotionary support dog, passed away, and my husband had quadruple bypass, and I retired, and so I was in quite a bad state. And I think, to be honest with you, that it was a gift from God to help me to get my mind off all the traumas that happened so quickly and to start doing something else and show me another talent. I think that's how it happened, really.
It'd be nice if we could all view changes in our lives like that. Makes it a little
Yes.
easier, right?
Right. When I was in school, I used to, I have my degree in community health, and I love to write technical reports and research. So writing poetry was like, this is crazy. What is coming out of my mouth here? What is my brain doing? I thought maybe my mom is channeling through me or something. I don't know, but it's a totally different mindset for me.
Well, it's a whole different
be
side of the
writing
brain,
poetry.
right? It's the creative.
Yeah, I guess so. And so here I am writing poetry, and quite frankly, I like my poetry, so I don't see why some other people wouldn't.
Well,
You know,
have you ever gotten a chance to read it anywhere?
no, I have not.
Oh, 'cause-
Not yet.
Okay, not yet. That's good. Good
I'm-
answer. Not
I'm
yet.
I'm going to see if I can read it at Barnes and Noble, since it's selling online. Barnes and Noble. Maybe they'll let me read it in the store.
So, what inspires your poetry?
My life. My poems are about memories. They're about feelings. They're about experiences. They're about daydreams. They're about all kinds of things. Eclectic. And I'm eclectic, so there you go. So my poems are come from my life experiences and the way I view the world.
Can you give me an example?
I do have one that is in the book that is one of my first poems.
Okay.
I did write some on the death of my dog, but they're very sad.
Oh.
And I had I was working through a lady who helps people write books or write, do author work.
Okay.
And I was taking classes from her, and she would give us like a list of words, and then she'd say, pick 3 words out of that list and write a poem with those words in it.
Okay.
And so she did that one day, and they were water words. And I wrote a poem that I really actually enjoy. I suffer from chronic depression. I wrote about being on antidepressant drugs, and I wrote about motherhood. I wrote about my ancestry. I wrote about being married, all kind of things. Would you want to hear Liquid Synchronicity?
I would love to hear Liquid Synchronicity.
Okay, here we go. I am as water. Sun diamonds twinkle with frenetic energy on the flickering ocean waves, reminding me of our loving times as the water embraces our bodies in its heavenly warmth. I ebb and flow with the lunar tides, enjoying sunny highs on the beach with the gulls and restful lunar lows as I converse with the full moon spirit. Frozen water on the river hides within still waters that run deep, as does my eclectic character. Boiling water burns like lies that blister a broken heart, and steaming water smooths out the wrinkles of the day. I stagnate, turn green, and stink when I forget to drink from the source of living water that restores both body and soul. The heavens rain down the blessings of their celestial liquid, and I thirst no more.
Beautiful, Minka. Boy, does that paint a picture.
Thank you so much.
And you just started doing this 2 years ago. Do people
Yes.
know what you're up to, Minka?
Yes, they do know what I'm up to. I joined some Facebook poetry groups, and I was putting my poems on them. I don't do that anymore. And I was putting my poems on my Facebook page, and I have given away poems that I've written for people. And so, yeah, people know what I'm doing. And all the people that, all my friends and relatives and whatnot think they're pretty darn good. So
there you go.
yeah.
You need to find a place where you can read them, talk about your writing process, local library,
Yes.
bookstore, wherever.
I do.
And you're going to keep writing.
Yes. I think I have enough poems left to publish another book if I make some sales with this one that make it worthwhile.
Okay. So hooking up with these Facebook groups online, and what else are you doing?
Actually, when I was in the Facebook groups online, one of the groups publishes their own anthologies, and you would send in the poem you wanted to try out for the anthology, and they took the names off the poems and just read the poems and then picked the ones that would go in. And I got picked 3 times.
That's great, Minka.
So that was good. So I am published actually in those anthologies.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
And you're just getting going.
I am. I'm just getting going.
All right. You're going to be on the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. It's a podcast.
That's terrific.
Right? I think it's such a great idea. I love doing the show.
Yeah. See, I didn't have any of this stuff going on with my first book. And that wasn't a book of poetry. Actually, it was a book on kind of like a children's parents' book on nighttime bedwetting.
Oh, that's useful.
And it was fun.
Yeah, I bet.
It's called Sally and the Pee-Pee Princess, a nighttime bedwetting story.
I love it.
And it's about a true incident that happened in my house when I was potty training my kids, of how I went from being a negative potty trainer to a positive potty trainer.
Oh, boy. How many parents would that help?
Yeah, really. And so it's adorable. I wish I had known about Fulton then.
I have a feeling I'll be talking to you again. Minka Fishman Leeser, author of Liquid Synchronicity. Thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you for letting me talk to you. I've really enjoyed it.
Tired of the same old storylines in books, movies, and on TV, Rey Perez started writing Casper and the Zodiac Signs in 2011. And now this retired security guard from Queens is a published author. So what got you moving, Rey?
I don't know. I was just, trying to come up with something new and something that nobody's ever done before. And I'm walking down Broadway in Manhattan, and I passed by this movie theater, this multiplex theater, and all I saw was part 1, part 2, part 3, sequels and remakes, and I figured that somebody's got to come up with something new, because these people, they're just not coming up with anything original, So I thought, I've never seen a movie or a story involving zodiac signs. So I decided to work on it, to start writing something about it.
Why zodiac signs?
Well, they're interesting. Everybody loves our horoscopes, even though we did not choose to live under our horoscope, but we all love them. And it's an interesting group of characters that you just gotta see where they're from and what they do. So I created a world where these people, these creatures, these deities, they inhabit, and to me that was like, something that was new and different, something that no one has heard about, and that's why I chose zodiac signs.
Okay. So your story starts off with the birth of a future Olympic gold medalist in swimming.
Yes.
What happens to her?
She was afraid because she was being stalked. She's a famous celebrity, and every celebrity comes with a stalker. In every story, you always have a celebrity with a stalker. So she had her own little stalker, and she was afraid of him, but she wouldn't get any bodyguards or any protection. So she has a boyfriend that works in a hospital, and he went and he got these bodyguards for her. So the problem wasn't the stalker. The problem was the practicing that she was doing for the Olympics in 2016. She got into a swimming pool accident while practicing her dives. And that's how she ended up in this world inhabited by zodiac signs.
Well, she was in a coma, right?
Yes, she ended up in a coma, yes.
And that's where she kind of entered this fantasy world.
Yes.
And who's in the fantasy world?
Well, all of your zodiac signs: Capricorn, Scorpio, Aquarius, Sagittarius, Virgo, Leo. They're all in there.
And what happens?
Well, while she's in this world, she can't seem to remember who she is or where she's from. She's suffering from a case of amnesia.
Okay.
Meanwhile, these horoscopes, these zodiac signs, they're wondering, who is she, where is she from, and what is she doing in their land? I mean, this place, it's called Acropolis 2, and it's supposed to be a part of heaven, but it's a part of heaven that mortals aren't allowed in. So they're seeing this woman roaming around their land, and they're wondering, what is she doing here? Is she here to replace us? Or what? So their goal is to try to figure out who she is and where she's from and try to get her back home.
You say in your synopsis, her thirst to know about herself and where she came from goes from seashores to rainforests, meadows, wastelands, mountain ranges, canyons. And then she meets the strangest of all gods and deities.
Well, she starts off, she wakes up in the middle of an ocean because, of course, when she got into her accident, she did it while she was diving into her swimming pool. So she woke up in an ocean where she met the zodiac sign Pisces. And she's trying to figure out who is she and where she's from, and who are these things, these two fishes, these two huge, large fishes that are swimming around her. So they're telling her that she's not an underwater creature. She's supposed to be a land creature, and that she's not supposed to be underwater. So she wants to know, well, where can she find land and air? So they tell her, well, just swim south and you'll find what you're looking for. So being that she's a swimmer and a very good swimmer, she swam all the way until she reaches the shores of this land called Acropolis 2, where she then met the zodiac sign Capricorn. And that's where the adventure begins.
Okay. Now you say she has to get back home before she ends up replacing one of the zodiac signs.
Yes, that would be the big problem for her there. If she doesn't get back home to where she lives, or where she came from, she's gonna have to end. She's gonna have to replace one of them. And what happened was, as she asked Capricorn, "Are there other people like her on this land?" Because she wanted to meet other people. So the zodiac sign Capricorn tells her, "Look, go to this place called the Temple of Symbols, and you might see other people there." So she went on this long adventure, and on her way to the temple, she met other zodiac signs, and unfortunately, she came across Scorpio. Now, Scorpio, it's not a friendly zodiac sign. Scorpio there are a few of them that are not friendly, and Scorpio happens to be one of them. She happened to have came across his cave where he dwells in, and they got into this battle, and she screamed and she screamed. When she screamed, she caused an avalanche of rocks that came down on the zodiac sign Scorpio, and now he's trapped inside this cave without coming out and being a zodiac sign. So now she learns that she has to go back and free the zodiac sign Scorpio. Otherwise, she's going to end up replacing that zodiac sign if she doesn't make it back home, or if she doesn't remember who she is and make it back home, she's going to end up replacing that zodiac sign.
Okay. So have you been out talking about it?
The only thing I was able to do right now is do a little bit of promotional. I grabbed some cell sheets, and I grabbed some bookmarkers, and I taped them together, and I just went out and I started passing them out into the streets to people just walking by, and that's how I did my promotional.
That's great. Okay.
And I was planning to do something on Instagram and on TikTok.
Great.
But I haven't gotten around to it. I've been a little busy doing other things, so
okay.
I'm just waiting to see how it turns out with the press release. Right now, there's a press release out, and I'll see what I can do on social media. So,
all right. Rey Perez, author of Casper and the Zodiac Signs. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for calling. I appreciate your phone call.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.